City last month. What a fun gathering. And we'd like to welcome those of you who are joining us for the first time. As many of you know, this is our informal monthly network gathering, and it's geared to be just that. Our hope is that you've grabbed a cup of coffee and you're settling in wherever you are to chat a bit about this particular ministry topic today, which happens to be the Exemplar Youth Ministry Study with Rollie Martinson. Just wanted to let you know that in order for this to be an interactive conversation where we're sitting down over coffee, we'd like to encourage you to type your question into the box at the right-hand side of your screen, and I'll be sure to pass along your questions to Rollie once we're there. My name is Danica Montplaisir, and we'll be sitting with you and having coffee today. I'd like to welcome Dr. Rollie Martinson, who is the Academic Dean at Luther Seminary, to our network gathering. Thanks so much for being here with us, Rollie.
You're welcome.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Great. Before we get talking about your latest project with the Exemplar Youth Ministry Study, maybe just because this is a conversation over coffee, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and maybe some of the things that you're involved with at Luther Seminary right now?
I'm a husband and father of 4 children, a grandfather of 9 children. I have, in fact, been involved in youth ministry since I was in high school, when I worked as a leader both at our high school and at our church. I presently do a number of differing kinds of things at Luther Seminary as academic dean. Among them, I have oversight of the Center for Youth and Family Ministry here, which is our way of working with research, teaching, and coaching with the individuals and congregations who are interested in ministry in the first third of life. When I'm not at work, I enjoy old cars. I have 4 classic cars that I have renovated and regularly drive, and so I'm somewhat of a motorhead. I enjoy exercising, although this winter it's been a little difficult with all the snow. I bike and ride and swim and sit in my hot tub. That's enough about me, I think, unless there's something you want to specifically ask.
Into your life. Maybe a good place for us to start today is with you telling us about the Exemplar Youth Ministry Project. Before we dive into the book, The Spirit and Culture of Youth Ministry, let's maybe talk a little bit about what drew you to the project. For those who don't know what it is, tell us a little bit about it, and we'll dive into the particularities in a bit.
Be happy to. Several years ago, several of us who had a large number of congregations, pastors, and leaders in youth ministry who were greatly discouraged by the changes that were taking place in the lives of their congregations, in the lives of young people, and the ineffectiveness of the older models of youth ministry that they had learned either themselves. At the same time that we experienced this sense of frustration on the part of a great many, we saw and listened to, spent time with a number of leaders and congregations who were thriving, making great traction or transformation, working transformation in the lives of kids, and we're doing so consistently. That is, there were congregations that were bucking the trend. So the Exemplar Youth Ministry Study was an attempt to put together across 7 denominations an inquiry into what was going on in these congregations, small, medium, and large, across all areas of the country where youth ministry was thriving. thriving. Using a quantitative quantitative survey process, and then selected 21, 3 from each of 7 denominations, small, medium, and large in all regions of the country, with whom we did site visits. And we discovered some just awesome, interesting, new ideas and awarenesses as we were in these congregations. And it's out of that study then that the new book that was just published in 2010 came.
Awesome. I should say I, and the congregation that I work in have been using this as a way and love all the things that it teaches me. And I know that the study was the first piece, and now sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, to a concise format that is more accessible or is accessible to congregations and to church professionals. What sort of made you guys decide?
And depth of the information and the power of its implications for practitioners. So the book is put together in such a way that if one wants simply to drop into the main chapters, one can get, if you will, the substance of the learnings. One can get the message that comes out of the study. For example, one will quickly learn that the essential power of the congregations we studied had to do with the power of multiple spheres of influence or overlapping spheres of influence. That is, you'll discover in the message of the book how the intergenerational nature of these congregations themselves, their age-level ministries, and the way in which they unleash the capacity in the lives of their kids creates a kind of sweet spot, that is a place where a young person lives, powerfully influenced by a hospitable and impactful intergenerational congregation, experiencing age-level activities and contacts with people like them in the Christian faith who are their age, and then whatever kind of home they have, Christian practices and day-to-day faith experiences enhance what's going on. So the book, if you follow the chapters, will get that message. But the book has 3 other dimensions. One, you can drop into the appendices and see the depth of the research and the varying elements of the research that stand behind the message. Thirdly, the book has in it several places what we call tables, where one can get at the specific nuggets of the results, and then including case studies, so you can see how this worked in particular congregations. And finally, the 4th part of the book is very practical. There are at least 20 differing toolkits that a practitioner can use in their own congregation. So there's the message, there's the research behind the message, there are specific tables that provide stories and the information. So the book is to be a kind of handbook.
The power of multiple spheres of people that we're going to take questions in a couple of minutes. So be sure to hop on the conversation by typing the questions at the right-hand side of your screen. We're looking at the slide that you sent us, Rollie, about the power of multiple spheres of influence. And maybe we can just talk a little bit more in depth about those 3 spheres and what I think I know you to call the sweet spot.
Indeed. First of all, I think to say that these congregations that we studied were in no shape, manner, or form perfect. They were struggling in many ways like all other congregations, and their leadership were to continue to engage kids who are living fast-paced lives and are regularly stressful, lives that are regularly stressful. But these congregations had assets that could be identified, and the approach of the book is to pick up on whatever those assets might be in these areas. We discovered, for example, among the assets of the congregation these assets had to do with the faith maturity of the congregation, some of the ways in which the pastor led, some of the qualities of the congregation itself, and the way in which these congregations, these adult congregations, involved young people not just in the practices of the congregation but also in the leadership. So one can look into, in fact, we identified 44 assets totally across all these dimensions, but one can look into and pick up on at least 18 assets that have to do with, first of all, the congregation itself. Then in terms of youth ministry, we discovered in these congregations that there were ongoing varying forms of age-level youth ministry, and they tended to cluster around the strengths of the youth minister, the quality of youth, that is young people themselves as leaders and adult leaders, and the way in which these activities were put together in a contextual way that was effective. And we discovered, as we looked into that aspect of what was going on in these congregations, that there were several other strengths that were there in terms of the youth ministries and the leadership of the youth minister. And in many cases, in fact, in most cases, these youth ministers, this prime youth leader in the congregation was not paid, but was publicly identified and recognized. And then finally, we discovered that these congregations were working at, and they were in varying stages of being able to help families see that not influence the lives of their kids, and that these families were in fact involved in a variety of faith practices, that parents were being equipped to do their parenting in a better fashion, and that the church was helping adults and kids foster or strengthen their relationship with one another. The sweet spot I talked about and that you identified, we discovered that if a young person had a certain level of assets, that is in the congregation that they were a part of, in the youth ministry they were a part of, and in their home, 77% of the time these young people were maturing in faith and had an incredibly interesting faith life. So consequently, we came to identify that spot or that place where young people have these multiple influences as a particularly powerful place of influence for young people to be in the life of a congregation, their family, and our youth ministry.
Awesome. Great stuff. Like I said, I really love what this study has to offer the church and to church professionals. We do have a couple questions coming in, and I want to encourage you to keep them coming. My last question for you is, as church professionals, what do you see that we need to pay particular attention to in this? What do we need to know about the future of church? And are there any tools or talk points that we can suggest to those of us on the front lines? Or maybe a simpler way to put it is, how do we get this study into the life of our congregations?
It's a great question. If I were working in a small congregation, medium-sized, large congregation, whatever, I would find at least one, perhaps one or two other people who are stakeholders with young people, whether that was the pastor, if possible. I would want to include the pastor, but a particularly concerned or perhaps involved parent. If there's a youth advisor or youth leader or any adult that's working with kids, if there's a particularly involved or interested young person, I gather 1, 2, 3, 4 people, and we would work our way through the message portion and the tool portion of the book. Another reason for us writing it. And we would do that very slowly, and we would digest these pieces and work them from the vantage point of what they're telling us, the questions that we have, then use the book as a way of starting to increase or build on that particular asset one at a time, rather than try to change the program or change the whole idea. We'd start with the asset. Hello, Donica.
Oh,
I can hear you now.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I said, okay, we're on. Yep. It's funny that we can't hear them. We're sitting, you know, across the table at a coffee shop. No, I'm just teasing. It's important work and a big job, but I think congregations who are diving into this and taking this seriously are reaping benefits from it, that's for sure. As our congregation is one of those, we're just so excited about this work.
Well, it's not easy.
It goes, this
set of ideas counteract. This set of ideas tends to counteract the prevailing stereotype of youth ministry as being done by 1 or 2 key people who are working only age-level ministries, and that the large congregation doesn't really have anything to, the larger congregation doesn't really have anything to offer kids. So it's not an easy go.
Right. That's for sure. I'm going to pass off this first question. Comes in from Bill Bixby, a man you know well, I'm sure.
Yes, indeed.
Bill. Rollie, do you think the key findings of the study and the spirit and culture of youth ministry can inform where the ELCA is headed these days?
I believe it can. In fact, I believe it can inform not only where the ELCA is headed, but where the other 6 denominations we studied in the EYM study as well. In fact, I think the essential findings of the EYM study line up powerfully with Lutheran core values, theological values. First of all, at the center of the faith maturity of the congregation is a sense of a God who is present and active and at work in the lives of the community itself through word, sacrament, and through the lives of the people in the community out into the world through vocation. So first of all, there's so much that aligns here theologically, as youth ministry is seen as a ministry of the whole congregation in a great variety of ways, and as Luther also talked about families as being domestic church. There's so much here that aligns theologically.
I would agree. We have another question, and Bill, if you want a clarification, let me know. The next question is, Rollie, you've been involved in the LIFT process on the future of the denomination. How has that work how has this work affected the LIFT process, and how has that process gone for you?
Yes, well, it's amazing to see how good research, as it takes the pulse of people who are engaging in ministry, facing its challenges and living out of its promises aligns. As we studied several thousand people across the ELCA as we gathered data for the LIFT study, we discovered in these congregations people were saying what we want is support for developing leaders, lay leaders and rostered leaders, paid leaders, lay paid leaders. We need across our leadership persons who can help us with developing mature Christians, whether they're adults or young people, developing disciples of Jesus Christ. And at the center of the EYM study, we discovered that this is what congregations do. And so one could go into the Spirit and Culture of Youth Ministry book and find a handbook for doing what's going to be coming out in the recommendations in some way from LIFT, and that is that congregations are essentially to be up to two primary tasks. One is making disciples within the congregation, developing mature faith, and the second is to turn and face the world and to be making, if you will, disciples of those who are out in the community, engaging in evangelical witness and mission, whether that's speaking about Christ in the world with those who don't know the narrative, or it's doing acts of concern, caring, mercy for those who are hurting and needing to be cared for, or it's advocating for justice in the name of Jesus Christ in the world. So what we found in these exemplar youth ministries and what we discovered in LIFT is being called for as the ELC moves forward are perfectly aligned.
Very good. Our next question is, how does the EYM study and the National Study on Youth and Religion, that we've had Kenda Creasy-Dean on before, and she's talked to us a bit about that. How do those two intersect?
Well, first of all, they have differing purposes. However, as the information is gathered from each of them, we discover to our delight that where they're getting at common bodies or common phenomena, that the discoveries or the data align with one another. For example, the National Study of Religion identifies 8% of young people or so who are devout. And in describing what those devout young people look like, if you go down the list, it parallels what we discovered in mature Christian young people as we looked at and asked them who they were and had other people tell us what they were like. So the descriptors of Christian maturity or discipleship in the national study and in ours, it's amazing, align almost characteristic for characteristic. So it's really interesting to see how when one gets on the ground and gets into the lives of real young people and hears them into voice, how one discovers parallel realities. At the same time, at the other end, we've also discovered parallel challenges in terms of what is it that makes a difference and how does it make a difference. For example, in the national study, we discovered that as parents go, the ways in which parents interact with their young people make in terms of the nature of faith in a young person. We discovered the same thing. And so both of them are pointing to how important it is that congregations get into the consciousness, the awareness, and reach out to and work with the parents in young people's lives, the adults in young people's lives, and help them to develop the kind of mature faith that they can then bring into their relationships with kids.
Very good. We've got another question coming from Mark Jackson at Trinity Lutheran College.
Hey, Mark!
He wonders what approach would be effective.
Excuse me, say the question again.
What approach would be what approach would be effective in starting a conversation in a congregation in a way that begins to shape new thinking, not creates defensiveness or focus on what we're not doing?
Well, if I would come back to what I said earlier. I would look around the congregation. In fact, there is in the book itself, there's a tool that can be used to identify the assets of a congregation, and one could simply go down and use it as a thought process, perhaps not even use it with a group of people, but use it as a kind of filter, and take a look at a particular congregation and start with its strengths. When I coach congregations in regard to this material, that's what I do. I ask them, what are you most excited about? What are you doing that you're doing well? And once we identify what that asset is, we in essence take that asset and live it forward, build it forward. Use that asset as a way of deepening that particular set of relationships, deepening and expanding that particular set of activities, and on the basis of that expanded and deepened reality, then move out from there to pick up other aspects of the life of the church as we celebrate what's going on, as we draw other people into what's going on, as we expand the possibilities of the impact of what's taking place. So what I would do is I would start with their number one asset and then pick up and build in the spheres of influence forward from that asset.
Very good. I forgot to unmute myself. All afternoon. But we want to be mindful of time. We're just getting to the end here, so I just want to let everyone know that if you'd like to learn more information about the EYN study or the spirit and culture of youth ministry, you can find more information at the address that's listed at the bottom of the screen, www.exemplarym.com. And I'll get that screen up here. And you can pick Rollie's brain. I'm sure he would welcome any other questions that you might have along the way. And Rollie, we just want to thank you for joining us for this important conversation. Thanks for hanging out with us, youth directors from all around the country, youth directors, pastors, and other church professionals. It's been fun to chat with you a bit this afternoon.
Likewise, it's an honor.
I'd like to turn your attention. Great. Our next Third Tuesday conversation, our guest will be Celia Whitler. She's going to be talking a bit about ministry with girls and some of the work that she's doing in that sphere of ministry. So March 15th at 1 p.m. Central, you can join us again. We will have the audio posting of this if you'd like to share this with any other particular adults in your congregations or in your youth ministry spheres. It will be up on the 3TC webpage, and you can get there through elcaymnet.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great day.